update. We have our policy governance module. We are going to do that today. We can talk about our board compliance monitoring after that. And then we have a superintendent report, minutes to approve. I think after that, we should do committee updates. Folks are okay with that? Just making adjustments to the agenda as we go, just looking for feedback. And then we can do an executive session for our superintendent evaluation, and he's going to be on pins and needles and his best behavior the whole meeting.
Aren't I always?
Yes, you are. Not on pins and needles always. And that's it that we have on this agenda. Are there any changes, adjustments, anything else we need to do? Okay, Katie.
I apologize for mispronouncing everyone's last name, and I'm going to go through towns, not in alphabetical order. So Steve Diglio.
Here.
Ethan Maurer.
Here.
Helen Stoddard.
Here.
Edie Granning.
Here.
Sandra Limoges.
Here.
Stuart Morigo.
Here.
Susan Lilick. Here. Kyle Magida.
Yes, and here.
Tara Arneson.
Present.
Allison Conan. Heather Chadwick.
Here.
Katie Nelson. Here. James Granzow. I know that's wrong.
Enzo.
Granzow. Kevin Campbell.
Here.
Oh, IRL.
In the flesh.
Lisa Pollock.
Present.
Thank you. Eli Lamette.
Present.
And Jack Connell.
Here.
That is it. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. We now have time for community comments. Community comments will be limited to no more than 3 minutes per person. The board requests that participants clearly state their name, place of residence, and topic of comment. The board will take no action on items raised during community comments, and dialogue exchanges will be for clarification. Our normal policy is to start with folks in the room, and then we will go to folks who are remote. If you have a question and you're remote, just put your hand up. We will get to you, I promise. Anyone in the room, if you want to speak, if you could just come closer to the microphone so folks.
I may sit here. Pardon me. Good evening, everyone. Matt Conforti, Huntington. That was the required opening. Am I remembering? Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to everybody today in regard to the question of a district cell phone policy in response to the new state law going into effect next year. I do, with the brief amount of time I want to have, just thank everybody for addressing what is, I think, one of the largest issues in school. I am here tonight as a parent and a concerned community member, but I've also had experience with a similar policy decision. I'm currently the educational director at Gene Garvin School. We went personal technology free. This is now our 4th year. So I have some experience in the transition to a policy like this and what the experience has been like for students. I want to recognize that I think this stage that you're in right now is really challenging, where you're trying to address the number of different stakeholders and how to assail most of those concerns. And I do appreciate those efforts being made. I've heard that Principal Weston has engaged students in this conversation. I think that's an excellent move, and always appreciate raising student voices. I think it's a really important piece, especially when they have opportunities to access real power. I think that's a good model for them. I also think that through that, having a reliable policy that folks are able to execute on the ground level is going to be really important. So things that were very important to us in that stage was having a clear plan and really consistent expectations. So at the beginning of our school day, students arrive, their cell phones go into a locker, and they remain there until students are dismissed. And there are lots of different ways to go about having students store cell phones during the day. But I think I can speak to the experience of what that effect is. And it's supported by all of the research that I'm sure everybody in this room is familiar with as to what the harm is from access to that technology during the school day. I don't think that anybody can point to anything to show where it's enhanced student learning. Through experience, I can share that it has absolutely done that. Students, especially since 2020, right, since the pandemic, have been immersed in the world of technology and social media, and it's inescapable. And through creating a pocket of time in the school day where students have had the ability to disconnect from that, has been more beneficial to them than they anticipated. It allows them to be free and present in the classroom and to be available for learning in a way that didn't exist prior to that policy. I think one thing I lost my timer, share in terms of how you're thinking about that policy is the more consistent it is, the clearer it is, and the more reliable it is, like having a place where it goes at the beginning of the day where it would stay until the end of the day, where you take that out of students' hands. Just to contrast, like a backpack policy, I think keeps administrators and teachers out of policing students throughout the day, which is damaging to those relationships and creates a situation where now that there's a constant draw to authority that is counter to educational opportunities. I'm sure I'm running out of time. I do want to say, just for the sake of time, I know a lot of people commented last week. If folks in the room or online are here in support tonight of a bell-to-bell policy, could you please raise your hands? Be recognized for a moment. I think that was all that I wanted to say. I think the other thing just to highlight, I do think it's important to bring teachers into the process. I was a teacher before 2020 and just still hold the experience of how divisive fighting the addiction of student technology mid-class is, how disruptive that is to education. And I think as people that are responsible for the education of our youth and our children, it's important that we give them every opportunity to have the space available to be open and available for education and not worried about what is happening on social media, if they've liked the thing that's gone up on Snapchat or who their friends have seen or any of the other number of distractions and competition for that window of learning. Those windows of learning are really valuable and hard to get. And the more we can highlight those within the school, the better off our kids will be. So thank you very much for that time. Thank you.
Sorry, I can't remember. My name is Meredith Chaudroy, and I am from Underhill, Vermont. Is that all you need? Do you need me to spell my name? Got my timer. Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time and letting me talk here today. I know this is time and energy and a big topic. A little bit about me. I am, by way of my background, I'm an assistant attorney general in the Consumer Protection Unit for the state of Vermont Attorney General's office. And I, through that capacity, spent the last 2 years suing social media platforms like TikTok, Meta, Instagram under the Vermont Consumer Protection Act for their unfair and deceptive algorithm that is addicting our youth to screens. They have very smart scientists that are creating algorithms that keeps eyeballs on screens. And I think proof of it came out last week when Meta posted their earnings for 2025. They made, I think it was $50 billion in profit. That's just profit, 50 billion. So it works. But my number one job, and the reason that I'm here, is that I have 2 kids in this school district that are in the middle school and soon to be in the high school. And I'm very passionate about this topic. The cell phone policy, as we know, is an answer to countless studies showing that phones and social media are detrimental, causing significant distractions, disrupting learning, negatively impacting students' mental health and social development. I know I can talk for hours on this if anybody wants to go to coffee and talk about it. But the studies show that these distractions happen not only when their cell phone is on them, but when it's in the room. And so the proximity, it does matter. But one of the most startling studies that I read about was that it takes 20 minutes for a student's brain to track back onto academics when they've used their cell phone during a day. So think about that, 20 minutes. I mean, it's hard not to imagine that if we put cell phones in a backpack, that kids are going to figure out a way to do it. I mean, I know my crafty little guy would figure it out. And even if they are just doing it, once or twice a day, and it takes them 20 minutes to get back on track, think about how that would add up quickly during a day, during a week, during a year, and what a lost opportunity. And I mean, our schools are not a place for lost opportunities. And I think, honestly, we are just at the beginning of finding out how detrimental cell phones are to our students, to our schools. And I think that the more science and study that's happening right now, I think it's great that we're taking this action. So I applaud us for doing this. But in my conversations and discussions with teachers and students, there's a lot of story of inequity of how cell phone bans are applied. For example, there's some schools that it's keep it in your pocket or just don't get it out. And then you have the strict teacher who gets to be the bad cop. And then you have the teacher that lets it slide. And then you have kids that we're encouraging them to be a little more sneaky about it. And I know that as a parent, I want my kids teachers to focus on teaching, not worrying about policing cell phones. But given what we know now and the studies and all the data that's coming in, I mean, what an opportunity for us to craft a policy that'll help our school district kind of lead the charge in doing it right. I mean, 29 other states have these cell phone bans. Other schools have done it, and we should be learning from what they have been successful at to create a space that, one, limits phone distraction by creating a space between our students and a device. 2, supporting our educators and creating a system in which the burden of enforcement doesn't fall squarely on them. And 2, taking steps to make sure whatever policy we adopt is clear so that everyone understands the systems and what happens when it gets violated. And so just so my position is clear, in my opinion, in everything that I've studied, and given all that we know, a policy of just keeping it in your backpack and leaving it up to educators to enforce is not good enough, and our students deserve more. I would like to see us find a policy that lets our kids have the space to grow and let our teachers teach and not be cell phone cops.
I'm going to stop you there. If you have an email that you want to send us with anything else, we would be
happy. Lots of studies. There's a really great JAMA study that just came out. And again, I am happy to come back, talk, answer questions. I'm sorry, I'm used to having more than 3 minutes. It's very hard for me, especially on this topic. Ask anyone who gets me going. But I'm happy. I'll forward that to you. And I have all sorts of articles that may be of interest, may not be of, or if anybody has any questions or follow-up, I'd be happy to. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Oh, God, I did go over. I'm so sorry.
Anyone else in the room? Remote folks, Katie, Donovan? You're still muted. I don't know if we can.
Sorry about that. I think can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. My name is Katie Donovan. I am a resident of Richmond, Vermont, and I'm here tonight to talk about pre-K. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I am a parent to 2 students at RES, one of whom is in her first year of preschool. I am here tonight to thank you, Superintendent Muldoon, and the members of the school board for hearing the voices of this community who gave feedback on the recent pre-K restructuring process that has been underway and for giving us as a community the opportunity to have meaningful input in determining how our youngest children are educated. Thank you for not only listening, but for doing the hard work of crafting and proposing another path for our families to consider. A path that genuinely increases accessibility to our high-quality public pre-K program while maintaining affordability for our families and honoring fiscal responsibility to our broader district. Thank you for choosing a path that continues to position our district as leaders in public education in the state of Vermont, especially early education. Because of your excellent leadership and hard work, we all can now proudly say that even though the challenges we face as a state in public education today are real and hard, that here at MMUUSD, we can rise to these challenges and we can do hard things, including providing access to full-time, affordable, high-quality public pre-K to our children. Thank you.
Not seeing any more hands online. Not seeing anybody else in the room. Ed?
Hi, I'm Bud Vanna, resident of Jericho. I have 3 kids at JES, and just wanted to really offer appreciation for everyone listening to all the sort of testimony that happened at the last school board. I'm a member of the Reconnect sort of group that has been really working to sort of think through how our kids' relationship with technology is, evolving, and what we really hope for them and what we hope for their school days and their school experience. And just really appreciate, the work ahead of the board, sort of thinking about this policy that you'll sort of get to hear about. I think, I would imagine you all are not full-time school board members. So I wanted to just read, a specific passage from the Agency of Education's policy that talks about, quote, prohibiting student use and access to cell phones and other prohibited devices during the academic day from arrival to dismissal, and think very clearly about what it means to prohibit use and access during the day from bell to bell. As a pediatrician, child psychiatrist, adult psychiatrist, board eligible in addiction medicine too, I got to take another test soon. I think about that addictive quality of having something in your pocket, something in front of you, as most of us do, and the temptation, to sort of turn off what's happening in front of us and look at something else that's sort of digital. And, we know that doesn't help with learning, but doesn't help, doctors learn. We're learning that more and more. It doesn't help with kids' mental health when they're comparing each other to each other at all times a day. And so I'm really hopeful, that the board can figure out how to get this right so that it does enhance learning, enhances the teacher's experience, enhances other students' experience, enhances children's mental health. And just appreciate you guys taking the time to think about that, consider that, and sort of follow through on the legislative intent. So thank you all.
Anyone else? Okay, Gretchen. Have you introduced yourself to us? In case there are board members that you haven't officially met yet.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Gretchen Muller. I'm the principal here at Camels Hump Middle School. I'm just going to highlight some of the themes that I put in my principal's report for this school year. Really, the theme of community within our school and beyond our school is the focus of my report, and that we're really focusing all of our work on building and sustaining strong relationships with intentional community building, with school-wide programs such as advisory, but also extending that out to the wider, greater community. Certainly, our focus and emphasis on kindness matters continues, and that is the fabric of Camels Hump. And we believe that that's integral into the culture that we have here. We ground everything that we do in our collective commitments that we worked on as a whole school for the past 2 years. And we are intentional about celebrating all of the kindness that we see within our school. And that becomes a weekly celebration. And we have a student council, our kindness ambassadors. So they really lead the charge. And that's been super positive in our school. We also, part of our community is now our first cohort of Spanish immersion students. And so that has been a great addition to our school. We're really thankful for, we have a new Spanish teacher to Camels Hump who has experience not only teaching Spanish classes, but also teaching in an immersion program. And so that's been a great transition for all of our 5th grade students who are part of Spanish immersion. And we're excited to have our 2nd cohort come in next year. So we'll have 5th and 6th grade. In addition, our community is supported by community members reaching out to us and saying, I'd love to offer more opportunities for Camels Hump kids. And so we've had some new after school clubs that have come this year. We have our drama club, which has been fantastic. We also have mural art this year, which is a community member reached out and wanted to do that work with students. We also have a teacher doing a club called Empower, which is really helping students look at challenges within our community and how we can offer support. So we continue to have the theme of connecting with our community and supporting it. In addition, our family group, Camels Hump Partners in Education, we're in the process of revamping. And so we're really thrilled to have families actively involved in that process and really strengthening that connection with our community, with all of the families. We also implemented student leadership this year. So having students play a role in being liaison between all of the students in the school and our school leadership team. And so we're excited about that opportunity. Kids have been really engaged in our meetings. We're partnering with an organization, Up for Learning, who empower youth and adults to really reimagine and transform education and the experiences of our students. So we're excited to be doing, we just met with them last week. And so we're getting ready for some retreat days. So that's going to be something we're really looking forward to. And we're also working as a campus, so working with RES and thinking how we can collaborate more as a campus, but then with the greater community. So we're strengthening our school campus safety team. I actually did a 3-hour tabletop today with our local police, rescue, and fire, which was fantastic. And we're also thinking about how we can collaborate more because RES does have a building that is running a full Spanish immersion program, K4, so how we can share resources. And I'm also working with Spanish teacher at MMU and thinking about how we can collaborate more. And so we've continued to just connect with the community within the district or greater community and strengthening what we have inside Camels Hump. So it's been a really positive year so far. Does anyone have questions?
Something I really liked to read about was the advisory program, because when I was in middle school, we didn't have that. And it's just like a really big part of our community culture at MMU. So I don't know when that was like put into place, but something I'm kind of curious about is, have you seen the advisory program kind of shift the intergrade culture at Camels Hump?
It's a good question. I think we've had, even before I got to Camels Hump, there were a lot of different iterations of advisory or a time for students to connect. We're starting to see, we definitely see positive connections. The way our schedule works, we get to have advisory only once a week. We'd love to have it more, but it does create opportunities for, especially at the 5th and 6th grade level, to mix with other students from different teams. Now that our 7th and 8th grade teams are 4-person teams, so there really aren't separate teams, we're seeing that it would benefit to potentially shift our model a little bit and have more like MMU does, I think Browns River as well, where you have multiple grades within advisory. But we do a lot of community building. It's been really positive. There are always shifts, but it's nice to have those connections. It's nice for me too, because I have my own advisory group too, so I love it.
I can add to that, just as a parent of a kiddo in advisory, just having connections with other adults and teachers in the building has made a big difference. Like my youngest, his advisor was a teacher of my oldest. And so they really liked connecting. And then that was like one person who knew both kids. So that was a positive experience.
Yeah, that's been, thank you for sharing that, because it's nice to have pretty much every adult has an advisory, or there's 2 adults to an advisory. So students are getting opportunities to engage with an adult that they may not otherwise have based on teaming. And so that's also a positive connection and another go-to adult within the building.
I'm just curious about what are a couple of the biggest challenges that you feel like you're facing right now? As a school community, or, just as an administrator? It's not a job interview, but it's still. I was like, oh, that's such a great.
Honestly, I
really am just curious.
Yeah, I feel like it's time. And I know that seems like a generic answer, but it really is true. It's hard to, we have so many great opportunities for students, and it's hard to fit it all into the day. So also making sure there's time for teacher collaboration that's thoughtful and really student-centered. So just, we're constantly thinking creatively about time and how we're using it. And we're, part of the report also talked about intervention. And so we've been really intentional about creating intervention blocks throughout the week for all of the grades. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is just time to be able to do it all.
Andra?
Hi, Gretchen. Thank you for your report. I really appreciate the work that you and your staff are doing regarding intentional community building and kindness and belonging. I'm curious, in your belonging surveys, if you're seeing a positive impact of the work that you're doing with more students, identifying that they are experiencing a sense of belonging.
Yes, we are seeing that. I didn't bring data with me, but we are seeing that. And what we do after our administering our belonging surveys, our student support group, which is administration and school counselors, we review all of that data and are intentional with working with students that may have had some lower rating scores and doing more work with them. And we are seeing, when we administer that belonging survey, again, we are seeing changes in the positive for how students are feeling. So it has been a really helpful survey to know. It's helpful that it's not anonymous, so we know which students we need to really connect with and support.
That's great. Thank you, Gretchen.
Echoing what everyone said, thank you for the course. Really, it's a great school. What you mentioned time? If you had an extra day in the week, what would you work on, or what initiatives are coming up that you're looking for if you had more resources, if you had more time in the day?
I think if I had more time in the day, certainly would build in more time for students building their literacy and math skills for sure, and also helping students have more opportunities for how you take what you're learning in your core classes and applying that. We have a lot of amazing exploratory classes, and I'd love students to be able to expand on that learning. So, for example, when students get to 8th grade and design tech ed and art, they've really learned, for design tech, for example, they've learned how to use everything in that space. And now 8th grade is really more of the teacher being their advisor. Students it's like 20 different independent projects happening at once, and students are really able to apply their skills, dig into something that they're really excited about and curious and passionate. And so I think having a day where kids can explore what they're truly interested in, and we can support them with that learning would be awesome. So balance of students leading their learning and also building their skills.
Well, go ahead. Can I? Yeah. You talked about partnership with RES because the buildings are close together, campus and everything. What does the collaboration with the high school look like? You just talked about the 8th graders, the things that they're learning, getting them prepared to move on to high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have our, they were curriculum committees. They're now curriculum council, same idea, but we've been those councils or committees. It has been K-8, and then there are certain points in the year where we do have teachers from the high school collaborating with us in the 4 cores. Our instructional coaches also do a lot of work with collaborating with lead teachers at the high school. We certainly have our move up day, which is really helpful as well. School counselors come to the middle schools to talk about high school as well. We're also, Spanish immersion is also another opportunity where we've been able to do more collaboration. Certainly, Browns River has had Spanish immersion for longer time. So they're, in collaboration with Mike, who's I think back there. And so we actually have a meeting this week where we're all, elementary principals, middle school principals, Mike, we're all getting together and discussing and collaborating on Spanish immersion for this specific meeting. So I think there's always room for strengthening our collaboration opportunities, but we do a fair amount of work connecting with them.
So as students are heading up to the high school and the cell phone is fresh on the top of my mind, do you see any cell phone use in your 7th and 8th grade kiddos? What are they used to here that they're going to be bringing up to the high school next year?
We've wearables just add in.
Yeah, or wearables.
We've had for a couple of years now, and now that we have more conversations around policy, and we did. Many of you were here last year for a great cell phone forum, which was fantastic and really informative. We've had for a couple of years, a simple summary was out of sight, out of mind. And so cell phones are put away before kids even get into the building, and they're away through the full school day. We really have had hardly any issues at all. If there's a smartwatch and we see a student like this, we just ask them to take it off and we keep it, and family can come pick it up at the end of the day. But it's been very, students have followed that, those expectations. Teachers are very clear with those expectations and are not afraid to enforce that. backpacks are always a thing that we say, does it need to go into the bathroom with you? And so we've had very good success with laying out those expectations. We don't have caddies, but we haven't had issues. Okay.
So I have a comment and a question. So my comment is data is good in these, and there wasn't a lot of data. So you said you have a lot of students or high interest in clubs or high would just be helpful to have that going forward. And I think something Sandra mentioned was also a data question, that just information was mentioned, but the detail was just a little. So I'm curious about the Partners in Education group. Last time we were here, this was the only school that didn't have a parent group. And I'm curious if you have somebody who's chairing it now, if you have, how many parents you have that are participating. Do you meet monthly? Do they have schedule? Like, it's the first year is hard. So I'm curious where we are in developing that.
Yeah. So we are revamping it. There was a Camels Hump PTO that was started several years ago, and wasn't super active in terms of collaboration, group and school. So we have a solid group that we meet monthly. Next meeting is tomorrow night. And so we are revamping. So we are getting new bylaws created, and then using that to identify our officers, and getting that established. So we have, a way to do fundraising efforts, bank account, all of that. So we are actively engaged in that whole process. The hope is that tomorrow night we have those bylaws. We've all given feedback on it, so they're all adjusted, that we can agree on them, identify officers, and keep moving forward. We're working on, we had parents here the last 2 weeks at our chorus and band concerts, sharing our welcome letter and getting families up to speed on what we're doing. And we're hoping to plan an event this spring. So we're moving forward and actively doing a lot of different pieces.
You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. You're welcome to head out. We appreciate your time tonight, and we appreciate the tour. And
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Is the cell phone piece next?
I think it is.
I'm going to stay for that.
So next agenda item is the device-free schools policy. We have a committee coming up.
Henry and Vera, why don't you go up those two seats up by Jack and Eli?
I was going to say
I'll probably pop there.
you'll pop here. Okay, great.
Practiced.
Okay. We're going to have the PowerPoint on the screen for it if you want it. Is it the four of you?
Yes, I was not on the committee, but I am familiar with that.
And we've given you an opportunity to share, and you're happy to do that.
Wonder, could we just have all four of you introduce yourselves? I know you two are familiar to the members in the room, but maybe not everybody watching will know you by name.
I'm Jack Connell. I'm from Richmond.
I'm Eli Omet. I'm from Jericho.
I'm Vera Markowski. I'm from Underhill.
I'm Henry Mankey. I'm from Huntington. Lovely.
So me and Eli are going to do the first slide, I think, or the second one.
Yes.
Just say next slide, please.
Next slide, please. And if you don't mind clicking on the link to the MMUUSD draft policy.
The second link. So, while we're getting there, if you were to look, so basically after the act was passed, the Agency of Education gave us a model policy to kind of help guide the policymaking. And if you were to look at our policy side by side with their model policy, you'd see that it is pretty much word for word the same thing. The only real difference, like same definitions, same main policy. The only difference is in the enforcement actions. So where in their model policy, they had laid out, and you can open that because this is our MMU policy. This will be on the board. If you want to look at the model policy they gave out, it is linked in the slideshow. They had more specific enforcement actions where I think the goal was to keep it kind of a bit more broad for our district, considering this policy will probably be enforced differently at the different levels of education in the different schools. So it's a bit more open-ended. In our policy, it's at the bottom.
Yeah, so we really wanted to have we wanted to leave the interpretation of the enforcement actions up to the different schools because obviously every school has their different priorities. But other than that, the model policy pretty much fits word for word our draft policy, whereas cell phone is defined, all the key terms are defined, and we're gonna have a bell-to-bell procedure where students will have to put their phone away, and we're suggesting them to put their phone away in their bag, but we're leaving also that up to interpretation too, because we don't want there to be just one spot where the student can put their phone. We want there to be options. So for MMU or for our high school, bell to bell, 8:10 to 3:10 is when students should have their phone away. You should absolutely not have your phone out during the day, not even during lunch, not during the bathroom, not going to the bathroom. Yeah. And the parents can call their students and their kids from the student services section of the school where there's a wall mounted phone. So that's how parents will be able to communicate.
Yes, that's sort of what we got. And then if you could go back to the slideshow.
I'm gonna ask the two of you to slide forward because you're not on camera. There.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
It's the
Different page, the previous.
Third page of the slideshow.
So, over the past 2 weeks, the policy that the committee had decided upon or proposing was presented to each of the grades in the school during class meetings. And those finished today. And the next step will be to present that same draft policy to staff members at a staff meeting next week.
So once we have our kind of final draft, or we're still working towards our final draft, we will be presenting it in advisories again for the students to know what the final thought is.
Really, the whole point of getting it out to students, getting it out to faculty, with time left, is to revisions to the policy and to get feedback on what people like, what people don't like, and any suggestions that people have.
So I'm going to interrupt for just 1 second because we're misusing some terms. Policy is what you all are going to approve, and that's that first two things. What we're doing is procedures. I know they both start with P's, but procedures are a bit more nut and bolt thing. So I'm sorry to interrupt. You guys are doing great, but
Well, am I correct that the school board could direct some specific procedure?
they can put anything they want in the policy, and then we make the procedures from the policy.
But the policy could be as specific towards procedures.
They can do whatever they want in the policies, and we have to make the procedures match that policy.
We could make a policy pretty tight where the procedures are it's not unclear at all, right? That would be. So yes, I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Wait, are they done?
They're not done yet. I interrupted. Go ahead, Jack.
No, go ahead.
He's not doing it.
But the purpose of those later advisory meetings is to get the opinion of a wider range of the school community and not just the people who ever be in that committee of education. That's what that's it.
Okay, that kind of goes to my question, Henry. So I know when we met 2 weeks ago, we talked about there were some faculty leaders or department heads that were going to be branching out to the faculty. And I'm just wondering if there was information gathered from faculty about what they see as best practice or what they might need or want?
The leadership group has seen the procedures and we're bringing it to a faculty meeting on Wednesday night. Two committee members who aren't here right now are presenting at that meeting on Wednesday.
Has the faculty contributed to, like, has
They have seen these procedures, yes.
but there's no like information coming from the faculty?
Right now, everything they've seen, they're happy with. So
I guess I'm thinking about this from when I was teaching, which was before COVID. So that was before cell phones were as big of a problem as they are now. And our policy at the school that I taught at was similar to keep it in your backpack. And that fell on teachers to police that all day. And it was a problem. It was a huge problem. And that was 8-9 years ago. So I want to make sure that the faculty, that there's actual concrete information coming in from the faculty saying like, this might work or this might not work. Because when I look at this from a teacher's perspective, I'm like, not the backpack, because it's just going to keep coming out. Yes, that's where that's what I'm thinking.
Part of what you've stumbled onto, Helen, is important to surface for the group. We're in a little bit in reverse right now. So historically, the policies have come in the form of a model policy or something that the administration brings that we have to write a certain way, or sometimes even your attorney has written a policy and we discuss it and might edit it. And then after it's passed, we come up with the procedures for it. We had a group of students who were really interested in helping to shape this, which we wanted to encourage. But typically we wouldn't even go down the procedure development until after the board has voted on the actual policy. So I think that like part of the conversation feels a little awkward, and I just thought I would surface that for the group, and it's just because of a little bit of the sequence is different than we're used to.
Clarifying question on that. Are we discussing as a formal matter approving or warning a policy today, or this is just an update on the process of creating the procedure? Once the procedure is created, then we will talk about policy informed by that.
Our policy is going to inform the procedure.
But our policy informed by the discussions that they're having around the procedures now.
So what we've done is we've asked them to come to us with the policy, right? And what the law says is that the policy has to be at least as strict as the model policy. So there's a range. It is, as we have, Ethan, specifically, as we have experienced many times, the model policy has some gaps, let's say. So it could be much more clear. It could be, I have seen better model policies than this. We have seen a lot worse. So I think you want input from us tonight?
around the policy, if there's any changes you want, then you all can make them. And I guess then it would come back as a first draft. I'm looking for my people I've served on the policy committee with, right? And then it'd be a first draft, second draft, and then you approve the policy. I think one of the questions that was on your agenda was, do you want to add, I guess, storage location, on the person, off the person to the policy?
I think I would even broaden that just a little bit, Mike, and say, I think right now we're at a place where we have basically the contextualized version of the draft policy and the, not the disciplinary piece, but the enforcement actions have followed. We worded that to follow other policies we've used in the past where we reference so this board has historically not specified enforcement actions, but they've referred to either a procedure or a code of conduct. So this is really the place where you all as a board can say, we want to add in a centralized storage option, or actually this looks fine. We want to keep going down the path that this is as it's written. Really the pleasure right now is of the board.
I asked 2 questions. Yeah.
Thank you for being here tonight. That's not a question. I have two. So I still have two. So you're in the high school every day and then you can hard. Right? You just told us that you've met with the different grade levels and that just ended today. What are things looking like in the high school, right? Like how big should our concern be? And then what kind of feedback have you already received from the other high schoolers?
Can I add to that question? Because it's very related.
Yes, them.
Can I get, I'm specifically interested in, because we're getting a lot of feedback as board members from parents in the community who really feel that storage location should not be on the person or in the backpack of the student. I'm curious what you guys think about that. You folks think about that.
Do we want to just go down the line?
Yeah.
Along with Tara's question. I mean, just because
You're good, Susan.
I know from the junior class meeting, there was like initially like a lot of frustration, I'll say, like students, students weren't really happy that they had to like put their phones away at all. But like, we really tried to tell them that like, this is not our decision and it's that the state's law that like, we have to put our phones away and like, there's no arguing about it. And like, I feel like, as Mr. Weston always says, like 85 to 90% of students always follow the rules. There's always that like 10% that won't, but like, that's like, I don't know, most of the kids will follow the rule and will follow like the procedures that we have laid out for them. So yeah.
I think very similar to what Jack said, as Weston has said, we're very proud of our rule following at MMU. I don't think that the actual policy change is going to be a very, very big deal when it comes to changing what phone usage looks like at MMU. I think above all, it'll just be dealing with grumpy students who don't want to be told to put their phones away, even though they didn't realize they never used it in the first place. I think definitely making the rule will make people like want it a little bit more, but I don't think it'll be a big deal to mitigate that. And then Susan, to kind of answer your question, like where the phone actually goes is something I've thought about a lot. And I know it's something the committee talked about quite a bit from what I've heard. And I think one of the issues with the centralized storage was how big of a school we are relatively to a lot of the schools where that works. Like I think Stowe does it. I don't know which one of the schools, either Stowe or Montpelier. Montpelier. But they only really have like 400 kids where we have 800. So like the logistical implications of taking 800 phones and then giving them back to very eager students before, like between it could take a very long time after that bell rings.
Yeah. Also, we've suggested like one of the things we talked about a lot was putting the phones in lockers for the entire school day because our lockers aren't really used at all.
Confirming that.
You know where your locker is?
Oh my goodness.
I don't think so.
But he
I don't know how to open a locker.
Definitely an option, but I feel like it would take a lot to get students to learn how to use a locker.
I bet they'll motivate
Your phone like an hour-long orientation activity.
Yeah, and also like, the logistics part of it too. Like if you're like right at the exit of MMU and you have to go to the other side of school to get your phone and then go back. It just seems like, I mean, it's not that complicated, but it would cause a lot of frustration. So, yeah.
So like what they said, like 80% follow the rules. And I do witness like a few kids not putting their phones in the caddy, but most of the kids do put their phones in the caddy. I agree. Like lockers are a good thing. I use my locker every day for my jacket. But like what Eli says, like going from the front, or was it Jack? Going from the front of the school to like all the way across to get a phone could cause frustration. But
I am going to have to be very contrary and disagree with a lot of what you just said. I think as a person who doesn't have a phone, I think I am able to notice a lot more consciously how much other people are on their phones, especially during the passive periods and during free periods. and how much people really do depend on that as their like way to pass the time between classes. I also think, to use an example that was used in a past meeting, there's very good science showing how addictive the phones are, and having them within a position, even if you're able to control yourself and able to stop yourself from using your phone, having it in a position where you could conceivably access it is very similar to placing a bowl of Oreos in front of a 5-year-old and asking them, don't eat them. They might not eat them, but it's going to take a lot of mental brain power and a lot of focus to not do that they could be using on other things. And I think that's why, like, very direct input from teachers on what they see, because they're also in a very good position to directly view how students behave around phones, and not just citing personal student records who might be affected by that addiction, but also looking at the studies that are put out by very reputable sources on that addiction.
What is the current procedure? I know it's not a policy, but what is
Currently, every classroom has a caddy, and it's up to teachers if they use it or not. Most of my 9th and 10th grade teachers all use the caddies. 11 and 12, it's a bit of the teacher's decision. More of the 12th grade teachers let the kids keep their phones. It's kind of a learning for that next step. Passing time, lunches, they're allowed. In the middle school, I think Gretchen said that you all are leaving them in backpacks, correct?
They're not out at all during the day.
I think you and I talked about that, Gretchen, but for the sake of the room, Browns River and Camels Hump are aligned with the cell phone procedures, right? Yep.
What about the watches? What's the thought there?
That's all getting put away. Whatever we put them away, it'll be moving forward in the procedures. It's watches, computer consoles, tablets, gaming consoles,
Phones, glasses.
anything but an MMU computer.
So if you had an Apple Watch, okay.
That has to go away as well.
Earbuds. Yeah, go ahead, Heather.
I would like to see an option for off-person thing. Like, I do think we can figure it out. We figured out harder things. But like I have an 8th grader, a rising 9th grader, and I know like just trying to get him to put his phone down and away is hard enough that like I can't imagine him just keeping it in his backpack all day. I think that we are smart enough, we can figure out a way to have an offers option and take it off the teachers too.
Go ahead.
We're putting our vote in for what's in the policy. That's my vote.
Is it comments or questions?
This is kind of a question.
Okay.
On in the current middle schools, do we have any numbers about enforcement actions for my understanding would be if this is essentially a backpack, the current policy for middle schools is essentially a bell-to-bell backpack policy, give or take.
Yep.
Yeah.
With the exception of our students who medically need
with the
cell phone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do we have information on the number of enforcements and what that looks like across both schools?
I can tell you this year I've had one student that I've had to take a phone from, and we've had one Apple Watch situation.
I spoke with Kevin this afternoon. He has a small handful of serial offenders that they've put a plan in place around from the start of the year. But other than that, they've not had any major issues.
What are the percentage of middle school students that have phones compared to high school? Because I think it is considerably
significantly smaller. We know the.
What's the thinking on treating the watch the same as a phone, or like how do you make the?
It's from the state.
Yeah, it's the studies show that
covered everything.
They're equal in distraction and
smartwatches.
Yeah.
Any wearable device that has connectivity to the internet.
I think too, there's been some conversations with the principals really about how to approach the transition. And I think a lot of the conversation that we end up having lends itself much more towards compliance right? And procedure. But I think the opportunity here is really around like connecting students with each other. And there's lots of ways that we can kind of foster joy and connection instead of device use that could also help us get in front of some of those issues, right? And so there's some great examples of schools that have done things like, board game corners or, different kinds of games or activities or kind of collaboration nooks that students can use to connect with each other. And so I know that's not necessarily a policy conversation. I felt like I should insert something positive into the middle of the room.
But we're still on question.
That's a question.
Question. I told Ethan he could ask his question next and then go ahead, Ethan.
I'm curious, has there been any conversation amongst the group, and I think like amongst the Reconnect folks, like what kind of parental family support are we able to provide? Could be in place to help parents develop expectations and processes them for themselves so that it becomes less of an issue. Like if we're talking about building a policy, we're talking about long-term commitment. We want to change kind of the curve on cell phone usage. And I think a lot of what I see can be very tricky is a lot of parenting are using phones to parent. And that then becomes part of that addiction because they're using it to entertain themselves. They need that quick repeated burst of whatever it may be. And I'm wondering if there's been any conversations about how do we help elementary school parents understand, like, when's it a good time to introduce a phone, or middle school parents, when are you going to be, getting a phone and going to school, and what does that look like?
I think at the beginning and in a few of the meetings prior to the bill actually being passed that we had, the Phone Free Coalition, the wait until 8 policy, waiting until 8th grade was discussed a lot. Waiting until, I think, obviously with exceptions for medical reasons, encouraging waiting for phones when they're not absolutely necessary, or giving phones that don't connect to things like social media earlier, or maybe getting like flip phones or things like that if you need communication at an earlier age. And maybe a possibility that I think we discussed at some point was drafting just a list of suggestions of ways that you can work with your child to have less engagement on their phone or less dependence on the phone at an early age. But it wasn't, I don't think, the main focus.
I think that would be a great place for Reconnect and some of those community groups to step in, because I think we've heard a lot of volunteering of offering for help, and I'm sure that that's a place that they would step into.
Separate from the policy.
Separate from the policy.
Along with waiting till 8, like waiting to get a phone until 8th grade, my family is working on creating like a website thing to make upperclassmen certified to teach younger kids how to use their phones properly. So if you get certified, you know how to use a phone and not be completely addicted. And then along with knowing, you teach the younger kids how to control their urges.
We all be a part of it. That's right.
Speaking on that briefly, a lot of the, I guess, controversy and pushback that we got from some of the groups was around the concept that learning how to mitigate your phone use while you're in high school is very important. And so we shouldn't try and take away a temptation because that's how they learn how to mitigate that temptation. But one, there's some very good research that shows that it's addiction and it doesn't really work to try and personally mitigate it. But also strategies like that of mitigation are much more effective of preventing use in certain situations, and when use is absolutely necessary, teaching best practice instead of asking the kid, oh, you're old enough, you can figure out how to mitigate it yourself.
The other thing to mention, Ethan, is there is a group that the school has, the middle schools and high school has, parent caregiver conversations. There's one in March 10th, communicating with teens that gets into it. Last year, she did 2 sessions on cell phones. So we do have someone that does these, they're Google Meets you know, once a month for about 4 or 5 months during the school year. So.
I just remember, yeah. I think I forgot it. But I have two questions.
I have plenty. On a way.
We're just asking this, like, this is a student question.
Yep.
Today in the school, when you have your device and you connect to the school's Wi-Fi, are you able to access social media?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know, actually find out. So.
Yeah.
Try it now.
I can.
So it's kind of, I don't know. I'll leave my comment up for later. Then I'm trying to get to the why of why we're doing this. And I think, Jack, you mentioned because the state told us to do it. And I'd like to see your implementation procedure include more about the why other than because the boss said so kind of thing. And truly get to it. Because I mean, one of the things I would hope comes out of it is when student goes home to do what hopefully is still called homework, you know, that the student's like, yeah, I got to set my phone down because this really helps me learn. But I don't think that's probably going to happen. But that's like the ideal state is we start to, you know, foster students to realize that they can learn more when they're not distracted with social media. Because a lot of learning happens outside of the school, I think, right? And we're just setting the example. But eventually we want people or students to realize this is a good thing to do. So have you thought about, is there any other thoughts you have about how to get the student body to embrace it as opposed to just do it because Mr. Weston forced it on us?
That's definitely something we can add. And it's a really good suggestion because like, I feel like, I mean, students are really frustrated about it, like that they had to do it. And like, yeah, you pointed out, like, they know the why, they know that they have to do it, but they don't like know why it will be beneficial to them. So like, if we could add that at like our final, like presentation and advisory, that would really help, I think.
And things that the superintendent said, like adding board game corners and other things that you can do at those downtimes, like lunch and during passing periods or during study halls, when normally you would be allowed to be on your phone. The library does have a board game library and a collection in it, but most people in the school, when I told them about it, they're like, that existed? We never knew. So just like maybe just having class meetings where we talk about all the things you can do during your free periods or the resources available to you, or just things like that, and like promoting the alternative entertainment.
Just one follow. So I kind of look at it being that it's a temporary ban, right? In terms of your day, you're going to be on the phone in the morning. Bell to bell is not the whole day. So I'm just trying to think of an analogy. It's like if you're a smoker and you have to take a flight, right? While you're on the flight, no smoking. But as soon as you get off that plane, boom, you're in, right? And so so this policy, I look at it, and I'd like if you could reflect on this, I look at it as an opportunity to help people learn better, but not do anything to break the social media addiction. Like it's just going to be done at a different time. Do you think this is going to result in less dependency on social media or addiction to social media, or just focus on being more present in the classroom?
I don't think it'll end the addiction. If anything, it'd probably be more at home. It might be less at school, but it will probably get worse.
I know I've said the word studies a lot when I'm talking. I keep on saying studies, but a lot of studies have shown that the less time you spend and the less time you spend at an early age on devices. So even limiting it just by an hour a day, it decreases your dependence in the long run. And even if you have the opportunity when you get home to be back on it, you might have the time during the day to think of something else that you want to do when you get home. And it's not an instant solution, and nothing will be, because it's an addictive technology that is specifically designed to be addictive. But trying to mitigate and trying to improve and trying to help with those coping techniques and those alternative entertainment techniques, I think is the purpose. And I think ultimately what will happen.
More questions?
So thank you so much for being here and talking about this with us. What I'm hearing and some of the feedback about lockers, demystifying, like literally your locker, right? Like, I think, I feel like something that needs to be considered is a real, like a cultural shift around this. And in that, if kids are not sure even how to use their lockers, how are we going to facilitate kids going to a phone and making a phone call, or figuring out how to connect when there's a sports schedule change and they need to let a parent know, or there's a change in pickup, or they're going to do something social, because we live in a huge district, right? So it's like a parent could already be on their half-hour journey to school when something changes. There's a lot of anxiety, I think, for students and parents around that. So
I get really policy, but this is shifting the burden from the student to the school.
Right. And I just want to make sure that that's clarified and supported. That's the only way to say it. Like, it's not just a law, and it's not just teaching kids how to avoid social media addiction. It's like, how do we change the culture of the school to best support students and this policy?
I chime in.
Mm-hmm.
It will change as we do it. Just like 6 years ago, everyone used lockers. Why'd they stop? I don't know, but they did. And so we stopped teaching kids how to use them because no one wanted them. Now, if we need to do it, we'll teach them like we used to, and they'll be using their lockers again. You know, I know what you're saying, Jack. It's a long walk from the front door to the 400 wing. In 2016, that was kind of normal. You know, so when it comes to communicating with parents, Sports U is something that, you know, a coach pushes out a message on Sports U, parents get it too. So the ask is going to be for parents to be a bit more attentive, instead of a text message from their student to their Sports U app that every sports team has. You know, so one of the things I hear from other schools that have this is the students learn their parents' phone numbers. They don't know them. So the main secretary is looking up phone numbers all the time because, you know, they got to call someone at home and they don't know the number because it's just been home on the phone. It's a process over time, you know, and I don't necessarily think it'll be a huge burden on anyone to make it happen. The first year, sure, there's going to be bumps. It's the first year something happens. There's going to be something we didn't consider. We'll have a water main break and have to send people home early, and instead of texting right away, it'll be goofy. There'll be something that happens, but instead of parents looking for text messages, they'll begin to look for messages from the school. They begin to look messages, you know. I send out a lot of emails. I know people don't read. I get about 100 people that block me every time I send out emails. So I don't take it personal.
Now we have
right. So I do think that's something we can overcome.
Alert system is really effective.
I know that stuff is all there. It's like just helping our students through the maturity and the growth to like go beyond their own anxiety about connecting with others beyond the ease of a phone. That's all that I was trying to.
That was my thing. I think necessarily there will be a period of adjustment. And the people who are in high school now, it will be difficult for them to adjust because it's such a drastic change in the system. But once it's the expectation that that's the behavior and that's what you expect when you go up to the high school, it will be difficult in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years when people coming up from the middle school are expecting that. So
Are you not able to access TikTok on your Chromebook or like, I mean,
Thank you, Honor.
yeah.
And games.
Galore.
It would,
What you're pointing out is there are other things that the district
Like,
has to
I
do.
mean, I guess like we're talking about, oh, like old times, like when people use lockers, but when I lived in old times and I didn't have a Chromebook, you know, so I'm just trying to figure out what the other pieces of this puzzle are that are still going to be present.
So your question, should it be part of the policy?
I guess like I'm just, what are we, I realize like this is a statewide policy. So that's that.
No, this is our policy.
Well, there's a piece of this that's a statewide, but like, what are we solving for, I guess? Like, we don't want kids on social media. We don't want kids texting. We don't want kids what? And unfortunately, I know as a parent, like I try not to use social media very much, but also that's the weather, but also so like, you know, is it the social media piece that we're trying to solve for? And you know what I mean?
So it's the learning loss. And the data show that since these phones have become ubiquitous in the world, like the places in the world where these devices have proliferated, learning loss is significant.
But I don't know that we've like peeled it down to like what specific thing is causing the learning loss.
Distraction.
But like, yes, I guess that, but it like we haven't isolated the variables enough for me to feel like, okay, we take a phone away that has TikTok and all of a sudden magically like this thing is restored. I'm not arguing for or against it. I just feel like we're having a conversation and I'm not entirely sure what we're talking about. Like we're all very sad about the impact of devices on all of us, right? But like, what is this conversation about?
So this conversation is about the state law that passed last year that goes into effect July 1 that says that schools have to have a policy that no phones, no wearables in schools from bell to bell. That's what we're talking about, just that.
I'm sorry, wasn't there a social media piece to the law?
Oh, yes. Social media is already in effect and schools cannot communicate with students through social media.
And so I'll just add, because it keeps coming up as a trend. So we already have a procedure in place about social media access and how that gets restricted. And that's on
January 1 that it went into effect.
I think so. Yeah. But so the admin team can't remember exactly when it is, but several weeks from now, we're looking at that policy or those procedures across the district, because right now it is building by building. And like, actually, I think Gretchen, didn't you just restrict some access? You did. Mm-hmm. So right now it's building by building as issues have come up, but we want to do have a more consistent approach across the district as we look across all of these issues for kids. So
I think while you can access social media on a computer, it's the ease of access that encourages the addiction to become so strong. And it's the fact that you can just take out your phone and maybe even in just 3 clicks and instant or it could be hours. But on a computer, there's the login, and then there's probably going to be a Schoology glitch. And it's a lot more conspicuous to have a large computer out in the middle of class or at lunch being on social media. It's not easy. And there are definitely issues with social media and computers, and I think taking steps to limit those issues are very important. But I think phones and social media are very closely linked in a way that social media and other devices are.
All right, so we're a little over, like an hour. They need feedback from.
What I would love to know is at least the thought of the board around on or off the person. Because, we've done this with students, and when we've been presenting with students, we've been presenting both. We're going to present with faculty, we're going to rework, and then we're going to go to small groups, advisory and department meetings. So if there's some way in the next, by early March to have a feeling on or off the person, and as we did with consequences, I do think thinking about being somewhat generic with it for the different school levels.
So if we're going to have a policy that is at least as stringent as the model policy, you do have to have consequences built in. So just
Well, the only reason we took them out was we were talking about middle and elementary schools. So in elementary school, you could have a student with a phone. If you have in there the first time the student's caught, that means they get it back at the end of the day. Instead of having a meeting.
Yeah, it can be stricter than that.
So, that's why putting in enforcement a little bit differently was, if you were to look at the procedures we have, they're exactly the same as you see in the model policy, because the model policy was written with the lens of a high school, I think.
Yep. So as long as there have to be enforcement actions in the model policy, at least as strict. So that has to be part of the policy. So if it doesn't come to us with it, we have to put it in as a board. So I just need that out there, right? Thoughts? Do you want to do a straw poll on this, on, off? Do people have strong opinions? I have strong opinions, but I always have strong opinions. It's Kevin.
I guess is this a board decision? Not what's the right decision, but is it
It's our policy.
He's asking us to make a decision on how something gets implemented.
I'm asking because I don't want to do procedure, then have you pull the rug out underneath me.
I think the question is,
There's lots of policies at different layers of our organization. So we can't just say this is a policy.
Fair.
Are we changing one of our board policies for this?
No, but
That's how we govern.
it's a district policy that the board has to approve by law.
We have to approve it.
And we can modify it.
Do we have a draft policy to review?
Not yet.
Oh, right. It's feeling a little mimsy, and
So I think what you heard is that there are some board members who don't want this to fall on teachers and who think that teachers are going to implement this inconsistently and personally. As a person who has gone in and presented to different classes, I've already seen that. So
Teachers do everything differently, right? Some teachers do A, some teachers do B. If we have a policy where it's a way, I think that's different. But whatever you all want, we'll do. We can make everything work. It's just right now I am feeling a little bit uneasy about a student group I pulled together to say, okay, because pretty much our procedures are done except for this.
well, right. And it seems like there were two options.
Yeah, and we've discussed two options. So, and we can do that with the faculty on Wednesday and get their feedback.
I think that would be helpful. I'm curious, your feeling too about it.
I mean, I don't really know. I know from talking to the VPA, Mike McGrath, who's the high school guy, what he's hearing from schools around the state who are doing it is everyone is saying a way is a way. That with the exception of Montpelier Stowe, no one really has set location. That doesn't mean we can't. It's just, it's just what I'm hearing from, I look at St. Albans, I look at Burlington, I look at CVU. They're doing a way is a way.
Does that mean?
Backpacks, locker, car, just can't be seen. Can't be on the person, can't be in a pocket, So if it's seen, it's consequated.
It's our goal to follow what the rest of the schools in the state are doing, or to implement the best possible policy for students' mental health and addiction.
I think it's to do what's best for our students. If I can say, the conversations that I've had with people across the district really are about trying to figure out what would be most helpful for students. And I think what Mr. Weston is pointing out, some of our colleagues have gone first and have learned some hard lessons already. And so it really behooves us to also ask those questions about what has and hasn't worked for them. Because I think I've had a lot of the same conversations, and I think you all have had some outreach with some schools as well. I think there's been a real difference in experience in some of the smaller high schools versus some of the larger high schools and how it's been implemented. Good and bad. But I think So I don't want to cut anyone off for giving feedback, but I think maybe Mike and I and the students have some work to do between this and the next board meeting to bring back an actual draft policy for the board to consider.
Yeah. Making sure that there's staff input and really we haven't all said it, but we've all been thinking it. We really appreciate the work that you've done on this. We appreciate that you've taken a model policy and tried to understand what that looks like in taking something from somebody else and how is that going to work in our building. Like these are the kinds of skills we want you to have when you leave the district. And we love that you get the real experience in doing it. And coming and listening to this is also part of that, right? Like you have ideas and then you get feedback and you have to change them and then you get more feedback and then you have to change them. And, you know, if I ruled the world, right, that's I say all the time, I would not have to take all the feedback, but we always have feedback that we have to take because we want to live in community. That's kind of how things go best. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for hanging out, Gretchen.
Edie. Policy governance module. We're going to do it. Really? And pushed it twice.
Line colors. We didn't make a decision when we did.
Are we pushing this for real? Oh, I'm getting back to the
10 minutes.
I've got the candy. 10 minutes.
we have a half Band-Aid on.
You know, say don't push it.
No, I just was answering the first question.
Henry, I just feel like if we should have the whole packet.
It doesn't make sense.
We ever have a whole thing?
We have meetings sometimes that end at 8:15, you know, I mean, it's just not lately.
Those meetings, those are filled.
One of those meetings. They're not
I do think when I listen to this, that having, like, there's some ways to consider this.
This is a longer than 10-minute conversation.
Yeah, especially in, like, when you think about it in context of the conversation we just had. Like,
so we're moving to board compliance is here.
I think once we don't have an executive session, might be a good time.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, we're gonna get to DQS and we're gonna have to tell the state how we failed every time we try.
Aren't we going to see
We're start having meetings from 6:30 to 10 and we're just gonna.
Okay. Middle school.
We are moving to board compliance monitoring. We're monitoring a lot more reports right now. So Lisa, do you want to start this one or are you delegating this one to John?
I'm going to delegate this one to John because he actually did the write-up. I just helped put together the survey instrument.
Awesome.
Lisa actually did the hard part. She got the survey together and so that we could get that out to everyone. So these have been updated since you all came into the room, just because I noticed that several people must have submitted in close proximity to the meeting. And so I wanted to update it with everything that.
So the paper copies are no good, or is it?
The paper copies are out of date. I'm sorry.
If we were all on our Chromebooks, we wouldn't have this problem.
Up on my phone.
Don't wait until.
But just a minute.
So just so you,
last minute,
you can understand what you're looking at. Report number one. Report number one is just the raw printout from the Google form, right? So that you can see the charts and everything. I think I've shared with the board that I've been experimenting and building out some different AI models around our policies for us. And so I took those results and dropped them into a project that is specific and has all our policies and procedures and some of our old meeting minutes uploaded to it. And then that is the second analysis where it categorized things by strengths and areas for improvement. And then also walks through the individual areas and where we rated lower versus others.
Totally lost me. You're talking about the documents that's linked or an updated document?
There's two documents.
There's two documents. So this is just the raw printout.
This, okay,
Actually,
number one.
I
Share the
yeah.
They're useless.
Can I ask a clarifying question? This is like back in the beginning of the school year, we had all these conversations about the DQS and the state or the AOE kind of looking at our performance. Is this? No?
This is us monitoring our scores.
They don't see this.
Only if we show it to them.
Okay.
I mean,
they can look at it online like everyone else, but the monitoring, which was that?
this is
PG
monitoring.
stuff we're doing, that we put off tonight. That's the kind of evidence that they are actually looking for.
This is too.
Oh, okay. So thanks for clarifying that.
And so I would just say this is longer than what has traditionally happened for monitoring. So we took the feedback from the last survey, which really talked about wanting to talk about each of these areas individually. And then Lisa and I kind of had a moment where like, is this too long? But we decided, at least for this time, to send it out. And so I think there's really great data in here about how we perceive our roles and where the areas for opportunity are for us. So I'm not sure if people want to react or ask questions or.
I have some reactions. One, I think when I filled this out, I didn't think of it always individually. That was a little bit hard for me. I thought of us as like a group a lot of the time. When it came to like committees, I thought individually, whatnot. And then I did feel like the visuals were great, and it helped me understand like, oh, there's definitely some gaps in our understanding of where we all, what our roles are, or where we, even where we find information, right? Like thinking about I was a little caught up on the monitoring report question. Like we have only done one. So I said, no, right? But then next month there's like 3. But I wasn't sure about when it said the year, is it like year to date or, so, but then I also knew, oh, I can go and look and find our master plan and look through that to be sure that I haven't missed something. So when I looked at some of the results, I realized there are definitely people who may not know where that is to be able to find those things. So it was really helpful to me reflect more deeply on our.
Well, there's an interesting question, right? How much information should we be providing to board members to be able to fill this out? And how much should board members know where to look for all of these things? So that's
sorry.
Other thoughts? I think one piece of clarity that we can put into place next year would be for the year 2026. So this should maybe be looking back on the year 2025, just to give it dates so that people know what we're reviewing. I think to do it this right now for last year is the right time to do that, rather than for this school year.
Yeah, and we still didn't meet that. Yeah.
Because I did it for the school year, but as I'm thinking about it, I really should have done it for the calendar year. Your thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, like trend data would be good if we could have a consistent way of measuring ourselves 1 year over the next, as opposed to how we measure our students and change every year. But if we could see, are we getting better or worse in certain areas?
So I'm going to hold right there. How do folks feel about this format? This felt pretty comprehensive to me. Is this the format we want to use going forward so that we have trend data? Get yeses and nos. All right, think on that. Go ahead. What's your next
Format of the
question?
survey?
Yeah. Okay.
And there were a few areas where we had pretty good variety of responses. So in the past, when we see that, those are kind of the ones that we have discussion on. Like for people who thought we were rock solid, why? For people who thought we were at the bottom, why? And then we'll kind of flush out that we looked at that question from two different angles and we agree that we're both yes and no. Ultimately, we might come to some actions that will result in change to make either the question clearer or fix the deficiencies that somebody thought we had. So, I'd like if we could use the time to get to like, what are we going to do different, if anything, based on the survey?
I was curious as, like thinking about like an evaluation of ourselves, we're giving input. We might have a perspective. Is there value in getting like a 360 worldview from principals like John, like you did this survey, or are there more inputs to be brought in? But I'm kind of where Kevin is, like, now we've seen it, and yeah, I think getting it year after year and following kind of the same format so we can compare apples to apples. But then, okay, so like, what areas need the most improvement? Where do we take the time to unpack that and talk about how do we improve? Or do we need to? Maybe we don't.
We can do it at a board retreat.
We have one coming up.
I'll say that when I was putting the survey out, for me, like being like fully compliant, I feel like is being like, you're 100. And like, I often generally filling out surveys don't put 100 a lot of the time because there's always room for improvement. So maybe I feel like some differentiating between the categories, because it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's hard because it's like 100 to me is like, we're doing amazing and there's no more work that's needed. And like, to answer all these questions, it's like, probably, I feel like there's always room for improvement. So I struggle to do anything like that we're doing.
Well, it's subjective.
Yeah, it is.
These terms are subjective. So it does, in my opinion, as a social scientist, somewhat limit its utility in terms of actually being able to understand what the results mean.
Isn't compliant though, like there's a set, this is the law or this is the policy, either we're compliant with it or we're not. It's not really like we're acing it, we're doing 100, we're either compliant with something or we're not.
Yeah, but a lot of the questions are like, does the board do this? Or how effectively does the board communicate to the community? So that's not like you're either in compliance or you're not. But
right.
I hear you. Like
Consistently or usually, I think we're the two. There was a lot of them. I don't know, my consistently is like 100, like always.
I don't know what the difference between very effectively and effectively is.
Yeah.
I think this goes back to Kevin's point. These are from the criteria of the external criteria.
This is our policy.
This is our policy. This looks exactly like the survey we had to take for the state. I think it had the same.
Our point, the 3s and the 4s are our policies. So we're asking, Are we following our policy? Yeah.
I thought that
modeled
is
those exact maybe the consistently those things seem to be exactly the same.
Some of the questions in the state survey were linked to policy governance concepts. So there's definite overlap between some of those questions that you answered in these. And I think to Kevin's point too, I have a short list here of where we have the highest variability, right? And responses, because I think also, I should say to Kevin and Susan's point, right? You can split hairs about how we rated ourselves or what's the right rating. But I think for me, it's really interesting to see that we had the highest variability around community communication around board role and community engagement and input gathering and long-term goal setting and monitoring. Those 3 were our 3 areas where we had the biggest divergence in how people rated.
Say those 3 again, please.
Community communication about the board role, community engagement and input gathering, and long-term goal setting and monitoring.
These last 2 are one?
No, they're separate ones. No, there's three. Communication about.
Goal setting and monitoring is one.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Yes.
Oh, against the goals. Got it. Okay.
It also just kind of concerns me that like not everybody knows that we do provide orientation for new board members. I mean, we provide orientation for new board members.
Yeah, but we didn't this year.
Okay.
We had a little transition issue this year.
Okay.
So I think that's
why.
yes, we have a very good orientation plan that
I
we
know.
didn't implement this year.
Oh, okay.
Which
Okay.
is a problem.
Not that either.
Sorry, my bad.
I take back my consistently.
Oh, now I gotta update the survey again.
Go ahead, Sandra.
I like this format, and I think there's good information for us. So I think the challenge will be just really looking at it together and deciding what's next. But I think it's really worth using it for a while, even though it may not be ideal. And, look at trends, especially if we have the time to really unpack it and take some action steps around how can we improve. Then that data over time will really be helpful, but I like it.
Do we want to spend an hour on this at our retreat at the end of March and just dive into a couple of these and some of the comments, some of the
Can I?
second March.
It's the retreat.
It's our second March meeting. We do training.
Oh, okay.
So we'll have time to do more policy governance and this.
Okay.
Retreats in the summer and we have to start.
That's what I thought. I was like, wait a minute, March is like,
Oh, we're gonna have to start reserving time.
Okay.
In August, but yeah. We'll do that.
Thank you.
In April. So, all right, if there's something specific on here that folks want to dive into more, send an email to me and John and we'll get that on the focus. But I really actually like this a lot. I feel like there's a lot of, and I think it's probably an hour conversation that we should be having afterward and just to talk about, we'll talk about some of the other things here, but I just want to make sure that other folks are comfortable with this long of a survey and taking the time to fill it out and then.
No problem.
All right. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa.
So fast, we have time to do a policy governance module. I know we don't.
Already tabled it.
Superintendent report, we're back on time.
Back on schedule.
Yes, we didn't officially table it, but we officially tabled it.
Well, I thought I was going to have a really short one because I just gave a superintendent's report at the last meeting, but there's been a lot going on. So there are a couple of things that I want to highlight and then happy to go wherever the board wants to. The first one really is about pre-K programming. So a lot of the information here is cut from this, cut and paste from a survey data set that we got at the end of last week and through the weekend. And then we also sent some updated communication out today to pre-K families that looks like this. In what I can only describe as an enormous referendum and vote of confidence in the pre-K program that we have, families were super clear that even if it is not an extended day option, they really want to have Mount Mansfield run our pre-K program and to not partner up with outside providers for that programming and do a program split. So that's great because we have, since the time we last met and now, been able to work with the state to get approval to receive CCFAP funds, which is that supplemental assistance for childcare. That was a very long and convoluted process. If anyone wants to talk about it, I'm happy to. I'm just happy that we are at the place now where we have access to that, because that will allow us to fund an expansion to 5 days a week of pre-K programming. And if we have additional demand for seats, it will actually provide the funds to expand into new classroom spaces and offer up more seats for pre-K program for 3 and for 4-year-olds. So very happy about that.
So does that mean that we will be offering full day program with our teachers?
Sure.
And the state is paying.
Well, paying towards it is the way to say it. Yes.
Because
It's like there's gonna be some tuition included.
Right, I was confused about that. So our families will be paying tuition, but it may be subsidized by.
That's right. So we got a really rich data set. Families are actually very generous with providing their income information and household size information on the survey.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were able to model exactly what CCFAP will, or I say exactly, nearly exactly what CCFAP would bring in. And about close to 60% of families would have what they categorize as little to minimal expense, which is, we're talking like $10 or maybe $15 a week for programming.
Wow.
And then it's graduated from that point out. We did set, so it's a little complicated, so stop me if I'm sharing too much, but you have to set a rate that is the value of your weekly programming. So we set that at $240, which is the state rate. But we have a provision in there for families that are not eligible for any subsidy whatsoever, that the expense would be capped at $80, which is the same costs that families were paying this year for the Wednesday program at Part 2.
Right, 1 day.
For 1 day. So we were trying to make it so that nobody in the 4-year-old program next year was out any additional money. And so the paradigm shift here really isn't about programming. It's just that families, instead of paying an outside provider for that 5th day, would pay the school district if they don't qualify for any of the CCFAP funds.
So are we not expanding the program? This means that we're not going to have open more spots for kids, or?
No, so this would allow us to do that. So the getting the supplemental funding is super important, because if we just allow more students in, we quote unquote, lose money, right? I've been framing it as we invest extra for every pre-K kid that we get. But additional students take up to 2 years to show up in our waiting, right? So even when new kids come in, it's a little while before we see the full financial impact. CCFAP funds come 2 weeks after the kids show up. So we would be able to expand into new classroom spaces if families enroll. We would have to hire new teachers. Yep.
And we could, it'd be we'd be able to expand to a smaller number of students than we would if we didn't change the way we would have.
Yeah, so that was the con. And so we shared pros and cons for all of these with the community when we asked them to provide feedback. And the con for this one is that for this option is that it is not as quick to expand. If we go with an outside partner program, we could double our capacity in 1 year. This would likely take 2 or maybe even as many as 3 years to get to.
It's not as equitable with families.
What's that?
It's not as equitable for families.
It's not as equitable for families as quickly. Yeah. And I think too, the piece there is that we also don't know how quickly families will show up for a transition in programming, right? So that's always been a question.
You know what it looks like in terms of, is there going to be a lottery system like there was a few years ago?
So if we end up in a place where we expand and we still run out of capacity, we would prioritize 4-year-olds, and then we would also do a lottery.
Kyle, I know you've had it.
Yeah, well, one was answered with this requiring hires. And so what is our rollout plan over the next year or two of how much are we going to expand next year, and then are we expanding the year after? What is that like?
So that's really driven by numbers. So we have our pre-registration window opening on the 11th through the 18th. And so we're hopeful that we'll get a good response, and then that will really drive the structure of the program. People can still sign up after that if they want, but we might be space constrained. We really need to know in the next month or so how many classrooms we need to staff for. And in some cases, in some locations, opening an additional classroom will involve some facilities work this summer. to plan for that. So that's a long way of saying it's impossible to give you a number until we know how many people sign up.
Heather, I just want to, another way to think about that is that we have better control over the quality and consistency of the program, and we will still expand. It just will take us a little bit longer. And sometimes that's what you have to do in order to maintain that quality and consistency. So it's a, yeah. Yeah.
I had a question. So looks like in the survey, 49% of families say that they need like before and after school, beyond the school day coverage. But my understanding is the only option that we have right now is the Part 2 program that offers a full, like a basically full standard work days worth of coverage.
That's true. They do right now offer some aftercare options, but that's very space constrained, and that is always driven. So their enrollment sets that program's cap. So if they enroll their program fully for their full day program, they might not have space for aftercare. So next on our list, we have a RFP that's half written. So I have to finish that this week and push it out by Friday for additional providers for aftercare, vacation, and summer camps. We actually had quite a few people who responded to the original RFP and said, this really isn't for us, but if you ever put one of these out for aftercare or camps and things like that, we'd be interested in talking. Okay. So I'm hopeful that we can get some more options.
I'm a little curious about the time expectation on your plate. And I know like we would need teachers to do the actual instruction. What about coordination and like project management of one, lifting this up, but also then managing a really high quality program? Is that, I know you have some pieces in place. Is there more that's needed?
That's a great question. So I've been super involved in this process up through now, which I think is really appropriate. This is a big investment for us as a district. We have a wonderful pre-K coordinator or director, Angela Harmonian, who is really starting to take this over now and run with it. And we have been working with the business office and student services office to get ready for a CCFAP processing, and then also for what it looks like to support a classroom expansion. So I think we're well positioned to navigate that.
How does the financial, right? If we're now going to be collecting payments, it's not something that the school's really done much of in the past. So is that a whole new business operations piece?
We're super fortunate. We have some capacity to take that on right now in the business office. We've been liaising with, I always call this the school district in Brattleboro. I always assign it the wrong name. Wyndham Southeast. Thank you. Wyndham. So we've been liaising with Wyndham Southeast because this whole eligibility was stumbled onto by working with them. They have a separate entity for early childhood that does more than just pre-K, but they really have the system for billing and everything really mapped out, and their business office is helping our business office prep for it. So I'm hopeful that it's not a huge lift. They seem to think it's pretty reasonable.
One last one, sorry.
That's fine. That's a clarifying question.
And I don't know enough about this, but I know that there's like a weird world of like part AOE, part childcare development division monitoring. Like, is that, we're still in that world where we have both?
Fully in it. We exist in that world right now, and it is a challenge, but we have good partners on both sides of that equation, and they both have as a priority the expansion of quality pre-K. So, yeah.
And then I was just so that I'm 100% clear, the CCFPA funds, that's going to cover the cost of the teachers that we have to hire, or it's not going to be an additional budgetary.
So that's the additional money flowing in, and that's what allow us to fund additional teachers and classroom work and things like that. Yeah.
Plus some tuition and some.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Well, and why are we able to access that now when we haven't been able to access it before?
That's too. When these funds first came out, they were funneled to private providers.
Yeah.
And so
Told we're not eligible.
right. So school districts were told they weren't eligible for these funds. And then we had a superintendent's meeting in Montpelier. The time is blurry, but 2 weeks ago, I'm just going to say, hold me to that date. And so we have lots of collaboration around whatever issues people are having in their districts. And then that's when I was told, call Wyndham Southeast. And so I called. Now their model is totally different, and it's not something we could easily replicate, but I was able through them to get in touch with someone at CDD, which is this non-AOE agency that's responsible for these funds. And then in working with them, so at some point last year, the language changed and school districts are eligible, but nobody has shared that information. And so I'm very happy to be the first school district applying for and using those funds.
Is it a first come, first served basis for those funds, or is it?
No, so they're funded through payroll tax deductions. If we fully tap that well, I'm not sure what happens, but
That's when we get there. The legislature will figure it out.
Sounds a little too good to be true, but let's make sure we follow up and get those funds.
yes.
How this was communicated, some feedback. It's hard for me to understand what's changing in how you shared it. And I think for somebody who's maybe impacted or just not paying attention to every communication, it's really helpful to say, here's what we do this year. Here's what we're going to do next year. You know, or what the key differences are. I think you just spoke to it earlier tonight, but in how it was written, it was just, here's what we're doing next year. And at least for me, it was that different. I think I know, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
And will you have a chance to share any learnings about process? Because it sounds like this was a very aggressive initiative and you moved very rapidly in the last 2 weeks to try to pull this off, which is impressive. But like there were some bumps and there was some feedback and some horses behind the carts. And what was the, learning from that?
Yeah. So before I even get to the learning piece, which there has been quite a bit, there's like a fun irony about this, which is that the original driver of urgency was around this idea that we might potentially be boxed out from some of the partnerships that we were hoping to be able to leverage. And I say that that's the irony, because in the end, we're not actually availing ourselves of those options. And so I'm glad that we prioritize moving on this. I think for me, and it's funny, Jen Cote and Angela Harmonia and I debriefed just this morning after we pushed communication out on just this. And there were a couple of key pieces. The first is we had one of our buildings that the staff really struggled to wrap their head around this. And that led to even community issues related to that. And so I think this is kind of symbolic of the learning overall, which is making sure all of the right people had all of the right information and the chance to talk that out. I think, we met with all of the pre-K staff and things felt good and we moved forward, but we were moving quickly and missed some of those people who weren't feeling good. And then that festered, right? And I think conversely also as a board heading into the last meeting, there was lots of public participation about pre-K, but we had not had conversation about that. And so a key reflection for me is that I don't necessarily need to wait for a meeting to give you a heads up on these things. I could have easily given you a written brief and offered to connect with people in advance of that meeting so that you weren't waiting to hear about it from me at the end of the meeting in a superintendent's report. After 2 hours prior, you had heard from 14 different people about it, right? So I think there's more, and I can keep going if you want, but this has been a really good learning opportunity for me and the leadership team in general, I think.
Thanks for sharing.
That's what your first year's all about, though. It's learning.
Yes.
I was gonna say, we have two more hard issues in the superintendent report, so let's keep learning.
Keep cutting my teeth. Okay. So transportation is the next one. This is a big one. So I shared, I think I emailed out with everybody what was going on with the bus route in Huntington and what's coming for Jericho and Underhill. It's not hyperbole to say that the transportation system is on the verge of a collapse for us as a district. We have had a robust hiring pipeline all year, but as quickly as we're hiring people, we're having people exit, and they're not leaving to go work at another school district. It's for retirement or medical reasons. We still have quite a few people out on long-term medical that want to come back but haven't been able to come back. And so we've been super compromised in our ability to even run the transportation office because Aaron and Sergio, the supervisor and director, are both driving bus almost every morning and afternoon. And so we finally reached the point of breakage, but right now, so we are utilizing 2 out of the 3 routes that we can easily consolidate. So there's 3 go-to options for us in the transportation system to consolidate routes and have it have a minimal number impact. I don't want to trivialize the impact that it has on the people that are impacted by it, but when we consolidate routes, we impact either 1, 2, or 3 bus lines. And then in these 3 examples, so one is this northern route that touches Jericho and goes through Underhill. The other is in Huntington. The other is in Bolton. The Bolton one is not impacted by the situation that we're in right now because it's highly impacted by weather. There's quite a few days that kiddos can't get on the bus because it's not safe to traverse the access road. And so during the winter, historically as a district, we have prioritized not consolidating that route if we've needed to consolidate. And so that's where we are right now. But the next step is really going to be consolidating that route and moving towards route blackouts, which is something that other communities have had to deal with. So that idea of, okay, on this week, we have certain routes that don't run, and on the next week, we rotate to different routes. That's pretty cataclysmic for us, and it really undermines confidence in the transportation system at the time where we want people to ride it more. So there are a couple of things that we're working on right now. So the first I mentioned, so I was at the Huntington Select Board last week, actually it was convenient timing because right after the email came out, I was at the Huntington Select Board.
Sorry.
And so I had shared something that Aaron and I have been working on, and we're just starting to execute right now. There are multi-purpose buses. So if you've ever seen any of the tech center buses from Essex or I don't know if Burlington does, St. Albans, the tech center up there does, their driver plus 14 seats, they do not require a CDL, right? That they're not great for basing a whole transportation system on, but in certain areas like in Underhill and Huntington, where we have low population density on the routes, they might actually help us out as we navigate this because the people we're training to get their CDLs, which won't be ready until the summer, can actually start driving these buses in a couple weeks.
Develop relationships and things like that with kids.
Exactly. And then, the other issue that we have too is we actually have lots of people who just don't want to go through the CDL training. And so this might be an option for us to take care of some of those routes that are furthest out there and have the lowest population density by utilizing these buses. So there's that piece. The other piece that we're working on is a side letter with the association around bus driver pay because we are not competitive right now. And so that's something actually that likely next week, if you're on the HR committee, you'll get an email about.
I have 2 questions. The multi-purpose buses, vans, whatever they're called, what's the timeline for that? What is that? And what's the next step?
So the next step, Lisa, is for me to bring the purchase to the finance committee for approval. So it's unbudgeted. So that would have to go through them. And we are at that point where it is unclear if we'll need to tap reserves to actually fund that purchase. So that's something the finance committee will have to work through.
So we have to purchase these vehicles?
Do we have any?
We don't.
We have none.
We have none. And I've looked into borrowing some from the different tech centers, but the problem is they're not set up as school buses. So there's very strict rules on how a school bus that picks a child up and brings them to school or brings them home has to be set up. And the ones the tech centers use are not compliant. So we'd have to purchase 2 or 3 of them to be able to implement this.
How does the tech center get away with it?
Because they're not picking kids up from home in those buses. They use them to drive kids to and from work sites.
My second question, I guess, is more of, it's a question comment, but under the Huntington route, the Camels, Hump, and MMU students maintain transportation. From what I'm hearing, they maintain transportation in the afternoon, but not in the morning. They need to be brought to Brewster Pierce to access transportation.
That maybe the afternoon is
The afternoon,
really long.
it's really long. It's really long in the morning too for some kids. It's like, we're talking like over an hour and a half.
Bullet point just ahead of that one, right?
Yeah. Right. But the one below that says that the Camels, Hump, and MMU students maintain transportation, and they don't in the morning. They have to be brought somewhere else first. One other piece of feedback, or I guess a question that has popped up, is some parents to transport to Brewster Pierce so that their high school and middle school kids can access the bus to get up here. They would get there before 7:20, and the school building doesn't open until 7:20, which in a few months is not going to be a big deal. But right now, when I dropped my son off this morning, it was -18.
Yeah.
So having them wait outside and at -18 for 20 minutes for the school to open feels cruel.
You can get frostbite in less than 5 minutes.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up.
I think I'm really glad to hear about the multi-purpose van. I've been saying this for a long, long time. I think if you think about the way the district is, the further you get away from the center, the less people there are. That's just the nature of the beast. So, there's 10, 15 families that are on Main Road, Weaver Road, Taft Road, Mayo Road, Pond Road, Sherman Hollow Road. It just makes sense that there are going to be very few kids on those buses. I know this isn't going to be popular in the community, but I do think having bus stops and hubs makes a lot of sense. There is this balance. I think we really struggle, not just with transportation, but with lots of other things, about trying to do everything for everybody. And when times are really challenging financially, it becomes really hard to do all those things. I'm just going to speak from experience. I think there are some real challenges right now. My daughter rides the bus generally in the morning. She gets to MMU now today, first day, 2 minutes before the bell starts. So there's no chance for breakfast.
Going to the lockers.
That's right.
You got it. I think just in general, it's a really rushed experience for students. It's like hurry up and wait. I will say my daughter didn't even realize they were rolling into Camels Hump this morning when they got here, and looked up and like, oh yeah, I know this place. But I do think that part is, I don't know how to it just means the bus has to leave earlier, I guess. I don't know what that really means. I still think data on bus ridership is critical. 10, 15 families is really impacted. What does it look like on these buses on a day-to-day across the district? I think Huntington feels really, hurt at times because it's an easy sort of oh yeah, it's really easy to because it is one main road and a lot of offshoots, kind of do those things. Are we seeing the ridership in all of the communities? Because even though a bus might have a driver or a regular route, is that bus full? Because I still see every school's parking lot is jam-packed at drop off and pick up. And so what is the percentage of our
district. And I think having a district-wide conversation about transportation in general, like what can we provide as a district broadly? And it should be consistent. If we're going to do bus hubs in Huntington, you got to be doing bus hubs in Underhill, Jericho, Bolton, and Richmond. And I think there has to be an equity piece that, just because you live in Richmond means you get dropped off at your front door. And if we're,
Iarco has bus stops. We have bus stops.
Yeah, right. Like the bus doesn't come down my road.
No, bus doesn't come down my road. We walked half a mile to the bus when I walked with my kids. No, it's only uphill to go home, downhill to go. But yeah, that's the right. And
I think that's it. Is like, again, like I wouldn't know that living in Huntington, right? But the difference between getting off at Packard Road versus getting at the bottom of Weaver Road and I'm living a mile and a half up the road, it's going to feel differently for different people. And so again, I think just having that data of where are people getting the bus, who's riding the bus, how many people are on these buses. And John, I would throw out there as an intermediary, maybe it's not the special utility vans. Let's get a couple minivans and drive folks that way. They might be a cheaper price point. No,
they're not big enough. We have those for the district.
Yeah, we modeled using vans. So currently we have 5 vans, and they're not enough. So those are for us typically used for special education transportation, or students with mobility challenges that are temporary. And right now, when we model that in these areas, it's not. The economy of scale is not there. The activity buses are actually not that much more expensive, and we can fit 10 additional kids in. So
I'm confused though, because I thought this was primarily driven by driver shortages. So we're talking about smaller vehicles. It's not the vehicles that are the challenge, right? It's the bodies.
They're not licensed. They're CDL.
Right.
Okay.
And the challenge that we have, so we have 4 drivers in training right now who would actually like to drive, but we don't have extra vans to put them in. And so if we are able to put them in these buses, they can drive in the meantime.
Is there any?
Because I don't think my prerogative, I don't think the board needs to solve how we should be picking up students at a board meeting. But you did mention a couple of levers that the board could help pull. And I think we should focus our discussion on those. You said pay options. Anything else other than just updating us on the situation? Is there anything else you need from the board?
So I appreciate it, Kevin. My hope was to give the general update because I know it's a hot topic out in the community, and then kind of preview the conversation with the finance committee and the HR committee that are coming. Thank you.
Well, just that, Kevin, in terms of because if we're talking as a budget item or a financial expense is within the purview of this conversation as opposed to problem solving it. The reality is we're already running a very expensive budget. We added in buses in this past year that we bypassed last year, is having a conversation about adjusting how we're allocating next year's budget items for buses. Fall within that context for you?
That'd be a
Finance committee.
Finance committee?
Answer that.
But I want you to answer there.
I feel like I'm being interrogated. I mean, I think we just a couple meetings ago we approved a budget total number to bring to the voters to approve, and how that number gets allocated is the responsibility of the district administration based on the goals that we established. So no, I don't think it's our prerogative or our role to figure out how the budget gets allocated between transportation and something else.
But it was very specific transportation line item for buying new buses.
Line items. I mean, me personally, no.
More hard item.
I have.
It's the difference between means and ends. It's the end is the budget. The means is how it's spent. The line items, and we're not in charge of the means. Is that right? Is that wording? Okay.
I have a quick one. So the leadership succession. So watch your emails tomorrow. We're going to have great news. We're going to be excited. And And you may have noticed that I snuck in a quasi monitoring update here. It's not an official monitoring report, but there were questions about it in the meantime, since the last monitoring report, about leadership succession, who would stand in and take over certain responsibilities if I got hit by a bus, which I can't remember who said that, or Kevin says
We're in a bus, not a school bus.
not a school bus. If I win the mega bucks. So there's that update there. The last one, which is a tough one, is about academic pieces. So you'll notice, and I snuck this in the academic pieces at the end. I also made a typo. I must have been like living in the past. I wrote SBAC instead of VT, which I've updated if you're looking at it online. But what I'm working with the Agency of Education on academic data trends and improvement planning. There's some pretty challenging conversations that have been happening right now across the state with accountability. The state, I don't know if you all remember 2 years ago, the state lost a significant sum of money. The federal
$1,000.
Yeah, the federal Department of Education clawed it back, and part of that was related to the state's failure to conduct accurate improvement monitoring. So now they're all geared up and ready for it. Well, they're all geared up for it. So we have 2 schools that have been identified for potential monitoring. One of them is related to equity gap, which is the achievement of students on IEPs versus students who are not on IEPs. And the other one is global performance, but they are not able to provide me with the data about how the schools are identified. And so at this point, we're preparing an appeal so that the schools don't appear on the states. Most other states have some version of like a shame list. This will be the list that the state is putting out. I don't know what they're going to call it, but until we have seen the actual data that they're using to make these determinations, and we're certain that it's accurate, because we've had lots of issues with state agency data accuracy, we'll continue to pursue that appeal process.
But keep an eye out for an email from the superintendent in the
Yes.
next week, just in case.
Yep. So I will keep everybody up to date, because we won't have a board meeting before the AOE finalizes that action, and they are in a hurry to get that out there. So we were notified yesterday, and in the morning. They had a training yesterday afternoon about it at the same time. Or no, I'm sorry. Yes, not yesterday, Friday. Today's Monday. On Friday at the same time that we had our pre-K family meeting. And so I watched the recording over the weekend. And then we had our one-on-one meeting with them today, but they're cruising ahead, and the 12th of February is their date that they are no-go by. But they haven't been able to provide anybody with the data yet. So, or with all the data.
Right. I'm not seeing questions.
No, it's about something else.
Okay, go ahead.
Weren't we doing something on Monday, March 2nd?
Yes.
It's not on here.
Is it? So Monday, March 2nd, which should be on the calendar, is the budget meeting. So we have one on, and the February 19th one isn't here as well. So the Finance Committee is hosting one on February 19th, and then the full one is on March 2nd.
Okay, they're on February 26th.
They're on the bottom of the agenda.
Okay, I'm sorry. Those were the original dates, and that is a typo. I will make sure that everybody has the correct calendar. What's that, sir?
There was something going on that night.
All right. I'm not seeing questioning faces. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from January 26th? Thanks, Heather. Can I get a second? Thanks, Katie. Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. So other business, future board meeting issues. So in committee updates. Love to do committee updates. Anything from community engagement? No. There's been more community outreach.
Yeah, there, I mean, I don't want to.
District happenings.
Yeah, so we
Doing
are,
a lot more pushing.
yeah, yes, in my effort to move things along, I will rewind and give a quick update from community engagement. Lots of good things happening with community engagement. We've been making a coordinated effort to attend different events. Nora's done a great job supporting. Nora now comes to the community engagement meetings monthly, which is a new development this year.
Right.
And we've been using that time with her to plan our contributions to the district happenings. Nora's also done a great job coordinating a kit for tabling at different events. She tabled at the girls basketball game last week and said, "Hi, do you have a moment to talk about the school budget? We hope we can count on your support for the school budget." Like a billion times, but it's a great opportunity to just sit and look people in the eye and answer questions. But you know, that was just one experience. A lot of folks on the committee are now tabling and doing different efforts like that. And if you're interested, check in with Nora if you're going to be at a game or something and don't mind putting up a little poster. It's a great opportunity. Handouts. We're thinking about the different ways that we can open up community engagement a little bit more broadly. I just took some notes from the governance survey. I saw that come up again. So I think there's a larger conversation to be had about how we solicit community engagement or community comment in a more sort of open and broad way going forward, perhaps detached from a budget cycle. So we've been having conversations about that. I'd love to hear from anyone who has any ideas about what that could look like for our board. And we'd all, you know, want to think long and hard about the outcomes we're looking for and the different venues that would be most appropriate for that. But yeah, I think we're on track with community engagement. We've got some great new folks on the committee this year and some new fresh ideas coming to the table. So feeling good about it.
And I reached out to Jeannie from the VSPA, the Thursday night policy governance trainings, and we can talk about communication and things like that at the next one. She asked if we wanted to talk in the meantime, and I thought that we perhaps were too busy.
Great.
Allison, if I can add one more thing from community engagement, the VSBA has a training coming up specifically around community engagement, and that is on February 18th at noon, and it's in, you know, their weekly newsletter probably last week. So there's a number of us from the community engagement committee participating, but if anyone else wants to, certainly you're more than welcome.
And they'll send you the recording if you can't do it when they're offering it live.
You have to register.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are right during the workday. That's really good to know.
June. No update from the HR committee. We haven't met. Finance committee has a meeting coming up that might be interesting.
Yeah. The 19th we'll be doing a budget presentation and I guess talking about school buses. So
We'll be talking about school buses, Lisa.
School vans.
school vans, but we still have to talk about them because it's an added expense. That's where we come in.
Anything from the map?
Budget.
Yeah. Evan, anything from the
I
map?
think there was our AV meeting last week, but I didn't attend, and I'm still waiting for.
Invited?
I didn't get an invite.
I didn't get.
It's on my calendar, conflicting with a lot of other meetings, so I couldn't go. Maybe I just put the meeting on my calendar the wrong way because you guys don't know there wasn't.
That'd be good.
In any event, I have nothing to report.
Anything from the VSBA?
You meet on Wednesday.
Okay. Next meeting, you'll have something to report. Maybe.
Sure. Hope I get voted in. Really, because our next meeting's not till March.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Can't even process that. Can I get a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter? So moved. Thank you. And a second. Thank you, Heather. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right, we're going to leave this meeting. We will come back to this link to close out the meeting. So board members who are remote, I believe you have a link to another meeting. We will see you there.
Any last other business from the board? No, this might be Stu's last meeting. We're not sure. If it is, I just want to say thank you for all that you've done. And if you get back on the board, we would love to have you. So
okay, thank you. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and have enjoyed working with each one of you. I know I haven't been very present as of late, and I really appreciate all of the efforts everybody's made to reach out to us and our family, and just it's been a pleasure. So I'm still working to see if it's something I can support moving forward, and I'll certainly let you guys know if I can do that. Okay.
excellent.
All right.
That would be great. Thank you. I think on that note, can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Kevin, Ethan, second. Bye. Have a great night, everybody.